Hey, it's Clay at claytrader.com. This is my top 10 stocks as we head into Wednesday, July 6th. This will be a technical analysis breakdown. So if you're somebody that uses charts within your trading, or maybe you're just interested in learning more about charts and how they can be used to help make good decisions as a trader, this will be a video for you. A couple of quick clarification points before I get started. First off, this price you see over here will still be changing around, and then the candlestick right here will also be moving around. That's because the market's still open for a small amount of time, but I like to do these videos when the market is still open because sometimes we can capture some really interesting late day price movement. And then also I'll be using the 30-minute time frame. So for you beginners out there, what that means is that each one of these candlesticks here, as they're called, represents 1 day's worth of price action. So stock number one here, ticker symbol FFIE. What a monster move today. Actually started back on Friday and then got that much more continuation here, which is now formed a very nice pattern, and a pattern that I think a lot of people will be watching. And I make that comment because when a lot of people are watching the same patterns and wondering the same thing, call it a self-fulfilling prophecy, call it whatever you want, it can definitely produce some very dynamic movements. So on that note, let's get this pattern here drawn out. Whoops, let's change that up. There we go. So the top part of the pattern is going to be this trend line right there. Bottom part of the pattern is going to be this area of support right there. And let me change that to green to represent more so the bullish dynamic of things. And then to make this maybe all the easier to see, let's just make it one color, but we have our, oh, that was terrible. We have our resistance, we have our support, we have our big momentum move right here. And to make it that much more visual, let's put a little golf hole down here for you golfers out there. And this will be known as a bull pennant pattern. And again, going back to the whole idea of a lot of people watching, wondering the same things, no guarantees, but it is valid to think that if the price can get to the part of that pattern and then break up through it, that break in and of itself could create quite a bit of additional buying pressure. So again, no such thing as a guarantee, but is that a plausible thought process to have? Absolutely. So if you like to play bull pennant patterns on this sort of price range of stocks, this one definitely belongs on your watch list. Next, ENDP, and this one, overall, the chart's doing just fine, but I got to emphasize overall because there's a bit of perspective that goes into it. Meaning if you're some sort of day trader, flipper, scalper, whatever you want to call yourself, and you bought right there this morning during that opening 30 minutes and your plan was to buy and sell within 10 minutes, well then from that perspective, the chart looks really, really bad because sure, the price pulled back quite a bit. But from the big picture point of view, think about it. Even though the price pulled back big, it didn't even go and touch, let alone violate, those lows that occurred late day on Friday. So yes, it feels pretty bad if you bought up there, but when you take a step back and look at and compare the lows, like I said, if you're just using that as your baseline, price got somewhat close, but technically speaking, didn't even retest those, and then you factor in those lows down there, and you can see that as far as lows are concerned, these lows continue to get higher and higher, and that's what you want to see. So it's kind of a tricky chart from a presentation standpoint in the sense of is this a good or bad looking chart? Well, it totally just depends on what your game plan was going in. But if you care about more so the big overall picture, even with the bigger pullback today, as you just saw, those lows are getting higher and higher, and that's what matters most. Next one, CLVS, and I wanted to put this in this location of the watch list because same exact premise. Is this a good or bad looking chart? Well, I don't know. If you are a day trader and you bought right there on Friday and you're expecting some gap up or some sort of big surge to sell this morning, well then yeah, for you the chart looks pretty bad because there was a big pullback that occurred today. However, taking a step back and looking at things from the big picture point of view, I mean, you have a set of lows there, lows there, lows there, lows down here, and you get the idea. When you compare those lows, they're still very clearly going in the upwards direction. So assuming you care about big picture point of view, even though that had a pullback today, think about that word today as in 1 day, but looking at multiple days as you're doing here, you can see the price is still building those higher bases. So overall, the trend still remains in the bull's favor. Next, AMC, and a very interesting dynamic here because it has everything to do with the fact that all eyes are going to be on that pink line there, which on my chart denotes the very well-known, the very famous 200 period moving average. And this is why it's famous. Notice how it pulled back here, and though it was dropping, all of a sudden, right at that pink line is where the price started to go sideways. So that's going to be the big question mark moving forward is, who is ultimately going to win this battle? Are the bulls going to win this battle by eventually producing some sort of nice bounce off of this moving average, or the bear is going to win the battle and eventually produce a downside, push that could generate some more, movement and momentum in the downwards direction? But that's the idea of a watch list, not just to randomly buy, but to watch, to find unique situations, to find interesting situations, and then watch them. And in this, set of circumstances, everything is revolving around that pink line. So again, the question comes down to, there are no guarantees, but it comes down to the fact that that in self-fulfilling prophecy, whatever you want to call it, there's going to be a ton of people watching that 200 period moving average and trying to build trade plans around that level. So however you want to approach it, that's up to your personal strategy, your personal risk tolerance, but that doesn't take away from the fact that, the pink line, that 200 period moving average, there's going to be all sorts of people watching it. Next one here, RMED. And I went back and forth that I really want to include this one on the watch just because, talk about a buzzkill. This late day movement here really just pushed the price down, and I was getting ready, thinking, okay, well, I know what I want to talk about, and I still will talk about it, but I was thinking, okay, wow, look at this level right there at 54 cents. Talk about a nice, well-defined resistance area and a nice area where if the price gets up there and pushes up through it, that could very well create a lot more buying pressure and create a nice momentum breakout. But now that level just seems so far away. It seems so irrelevant because of this big downwards move. But again, to be fair, there was a ton of volume on this one today, so there's still, I'm sure, going to be a lot of people watching it. And, on the flip side of things, if the price can actually work its way all the way back up there, that in and of itself would be a great sign of strength. So if the price would then be able to get up through that level, that would be almost, the kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back of bullishness and really get things going. But again, that assumes that the price is actually able to, get all the way back up to that where that level was. Now, as far as supports are concerned, and if you like to play more so pullbacks, then there is a potential pullback area down here around the 36 cent mark to keep an eye on. But overall, like I said, I can see where you're coming from. Like, no, Clay, I have no interest in this chart. I understand that perspective because, this late day movement here really did change the dynamic of things quite a bit. But you never know, so that's why I figured I would keep it on the watch list. Real quick, I wanted to pause and personally invite you to get signed up for this free live training that I'm offering here later on in the week. So if you've been enjoying what you've seen and you want to learn more about this tool, how it should be used to help build consistency as a trader, then certainly get signed up for the free training. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a link down below in the description box. If you're watching at my site, there's an area right there on the webpage that you can click to get signed up. So like I said, if you've been enjoying what you've seen and you want to learn more, certainly get signed up for the free training. Next, MTEK, and this is very ugly at this point, and I know a lot of you are going to know what I say next, but there can be opportunity in the ugly. There can be that chance where while everybody else thinks it's game over and everybody else is just saying, oh, this can't get any worse, it's game, and they're as pessimistic as possible, that's where things can start to turn around. Of course, no guarantees, as I've said, so that's why risk management is always so important. But there's no doubt about it, this is looking very ugly, but in doing so, it's actually approaching a very interesting level, and that level has to do with down here at $1.25, which is essentially the same value of both of these moving averages, very, very well-known ones. Already talked about that pink line being the 200 period moving average, but the purple line there is a 50 period moving average. And like I said, notice how they're basically right on top of one another. So once again, as I'll say and probably say many more times, are there guarantees? No, but is it plausible? Is it valid to think that if this thing gets down to that area right there at $1.25, that it could bounce off that level? That is completely a plausible thought process to have. Nobody could accuse you of saying that this $1.25 mark is some sort of random area on the chart. But remember, to be fair, maybe it just keeps on bleeding, and that's why that risk management is so important. But as far as, from a risk-reward standpoint, meaning the amount you'd be risking compared to the potential upside reward you get if you do get some sort of turnaround bounce and turnaround back to where it was, then it makes a lot of sense. But again, only touch these sorts of situations if you're going to be disciplined as a trader. Next one here, TSLA Tesla, and like a lot of the NASDAQ stocks, just kind of a bizarre looking chart. Opening 30 minutes, big red, came down here, broke down through 650, and then pretty much just green, green, green. Now, I realize there was a couple of red candles there, but especially this afternoon, just one green candle after another, just completely grinded back upwards. So a very interesting day, and one where, it makes a lot of sense to be, questioning, is this, the start of a bigger grind to the upside? And the level that I'm going to be very curious about, and I think a lot of people will be, curious about the same thing, but there's going to be a lot of people that have drawn that trend line right there, which is based on these couple levels back here. And you can see that the price has still got a ways to go, but in my mind, it's not unreasonable to think that the price could definitely get up to that trend line, which then brings up the big question, which is the whole idea of a watch list. Find unique, find interesting situations, and then watch them. But yeah, I think a lot of people will be watching and wondering, okay, if the price gets up to that trend line, what's going to happen? Is there going to be another big breakout? Is it the price going to get rejected back down? And nobody knows that, but what people do know is that you can build trade plans around that area, and very logical ones, because it makes sense to keep an eye on a level such as that. If there are any sorts of pullbacks, the level that stands out to me from a support standpoint going to be right here at this former breakout area, which sits right there at $687. So I'll be curious about that level if there are any sort of pullbacks. But yeah, as of right now, the price just continues to grind higher and higher. Next, AMD, and the big question mark point on this one comes to do with that purple line, which you now know is the 50-period moving average. And you can see that the price is basically right below that level. So yes, that is a very valid question to be wondering and observing. Can the price push up through that level? Is, this current bounce right now have enough strength? So that'll be an extremely interesting dynamic to pay attention to headed into Wednesday. As far as areas of support, the main level here that stands out to me going to be right there at that $73 mark. 73, very important, because if the price were to go down there and then break down through it, at that point, you'd all of a sudden have the price having gone right back to where it was. And I mean, not to insult your intelligence, but price movements that go back to where they were, not exactly a sign of genuine power, true strength. So that's why, in my mind, that 73 is a very important level from a support side of things. And then again, from the resistance side of things, it's all about that purple line there, the 50-period moving average. Next, AMZN, Amazon, and like a lot of the tech stocks, and why I'm putting them all kind of right back to each other so you get the general premise of things. Started off rough and then just completely turned around and grinded higher and higher, which is now bringing it up to some interesting potential breakout points. The current level right now being right up there at the 115 mark. You can see 115 presented a problem there several times right there. Generally speaking, didn't quite hit it, but got close enough. So that'll be the big question mark, at least in my mind. Can the price get up to that 115 mark? And if it does, will the price be able to push up through it and get the break? And if it does, then yeah, I don't see why 118 doesn't become a reasonable approach at that point in terms of where the price could then head. But like I said, one step at a time. Let's first see if the price can even get up to that 115 mark, let alone break it. As far as levels of support are concerned, if there are any sort of pullbacks, first key level to watch right there at the 112 mark. And then after 112, you want to keep an eye on these moving averages. But in my mind, it just seems like these stocks have quite a bit of strength right now. We're in, clearly some very volatile times. So, that could change with a flip of a button. But as of now, it seems as 115 is going to want to get tested. So I'm very curious to see how the price behaves at that area. Next one, TQQQ, which is a leverage ETF, and it's just a way for you to expedite the returns and the movements if you think that the NASDAQ stocks and the Qs are going to move upwards. And that's why it reflects pretty much all the stocks we were just watching, where this thing is just grinding higher and higher. And I wanted to end with it just because, if you do believe that there's some strength behind today's movement in the Qs, then the TQQQ is a very nice way to be able to play that movement in a bit more of an expedited way. But, keep in mind that means that it can cut the other way just as fast and hurt you just as fast. So, the underlying theme, you got to be a disciplined trader. You got to manage risk. But if you are, then the TQQQ is something that's certainly worth keeping an eye on. And like I said, looks a whole lot like Tesla this afternoon with just one green candle after another green candle. So if this grind continues, then yeah, you could definitely get a whole lot more movement, especially when this thing's been beat down quite a bit. But as far as what I think will be the next key level to watch closely, going to be right there. Actually, I take that back. It's okay. So this becomes that much more interesting. I suppose let's do this because maybe you're saying, Clay, no, I wouldn't draw my trend line like this. So it does depend on how you're going to draw your trend line, if you're going to use those highs. So however you want to draw it, but if you do it with, option number one right there, you can see that a breakout has already happened. So those people now get to ask the question, wow, breakout has happened. Can this thing now move up to that secondary trend line? Again, nobody knows, but that is certainly a wise and a valid question to be asking. But regardless, whatever trend line you want to use, the point here being is that a lot of momentum showed up today. And if this momentum can continue, then you got to think that this chart has got a very realistic shot at $27 and potentially even $28. So that wraps up the top 10. Again, if you like what you saw here and you want to learn more about this tool and how it should be used and can be used to build consistency as a trader, then definitely get signed up for the free training. Like I said, it'll be later on this week, Thursday, July 7th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So I hope to see you there. As far as these top 10 videos are concerned, if you enjoy this format, if you would like me to continue to make these videos, and please help me out with some feedback, hit the like button, leave a simple comment. By doing those two things, it communicates to me that you are still enjoying. And as long as I know people are still enjoying these videos, I will continue to do them. So, and the comment doesn't have to be anything special. Give me a smiley face. Tell me what you traded today. Tell me what you had for the 4th of July. But any sort of comment goes a long way, along with hitting that like button. So again, get signed up for that free training. Hit that like button. Leave a simple comment down below. Thanks for watching and take care.